مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One of the brothers asked yesterday about racism, and especially here in the Gulf, in the GCC countries, and he was telling us, or asking me to comment about it. First of all, racism is not something isolated, or it is not a characteristic of the Muslims nor the Arabs. Islam is the least racist religion in the world. You could have a black Abyssinian ruling the Muslims, and they're ordered to obey him, as in the authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. You must obey and adhere, even if a black Abyssinian slave takes power and his head is like a raisin. So the Prophet is telling us there is no racism. The Prophet tells us that there is no preference for an Arab over a non-Arab, or the opposite, and for a black over a red, or the opposite, except via piety and righteousness, at-taqwa, by fearing Allah Azza wa Jal. And in the hadith of Abu Dhar that I've mentioned accidentally in the first segment, when he said to Bilal, "You are a son of a black woman," Bilal should have said, "Yeah, my mom is from Abyssinia, she's black, and I'm proud of it." He didn't say that, because Abu Dhar did not say it as a compliment. He said it as a form of insult. So when Bilal did not reply and went straight to the Prophet ﷺ and complained, the Prophet summoned Abu Dhar, and he told him, "You are a man of ignorance for what you had said and done." Now, Abu Dhar was one of the earlier Muslims to accept Islam in the very beginning of Islam era. So this was a shock to him, because he, seniority and ranking wise, he should be in the top. But because of his actions and racist remarks, the Prophet told him this. So Islam abhors and incriminates racism. Racism is a sign of arrogance. The Prophet said, whoever has the weight of an ant of arrogance in his heart would not be admitted to Jannah. Therefore, it's not something to be taken softly or easily. However, this is not only in the GCC countries, it's not only in Saudi Arabia or in the Gulf area, it's everywhere. Even in America. Look what they say about the animals, referring to immigrants, accusing them of being rapists and drug dealers. And the vast majority of these immigrants, whether legal or illegal, are doctors and engineers and having a good positive role in the society. Look at the white supremacists in Germany and Europe generally, and what they're doing. This is racist. When you kill someone just because she's wearing a veil, a hijab, this is racist. What are you talking about? Come to Saudi Arabia and look how real Muslims treat their brothers, whether expats, legal or illegal immigrants. We treat them as ourselves. Come to our masjids. Do you think that the first row is first class or business class? In the masjid, only Saudis pray there? There's nothing as such. We're all mixed together, standing shoulder to shoulder, loving our brothers. Okay, there's always a black sheep in every family. And again, black sheep does not mean I'm racist. This is how they say it. Don't be too sensitive. Color is just a color. Allah created you black, or created you white, or created you yellow. Not as in a coward, but whatever. So don't put a lot of pressure on Islam or on Muslims or on the GCC countries just because there are some black seeds, black sheep, black apples, rotten apples in the box. Doesn't mean the whole box is rotten. Racism is totally unacceptable in Islam, in any shape or any form. And this is what Islam teaches us, and this is part of our values. Aisha says, if someone has intention to observe i'tikaf and want to use a cell phone while sitting in i'tikaf, is it permissible for her to talk with her husband a little on the video call? Also, can she use YouTube for lectures of different scholars and muftis, as there is a chance to see a non-mahram by opening the video without intention to see them? First of all, while in i'tikaf, there is no problem in talking to your spouse. The Prophet ﷺ, and the hadith is in the Sahih, was in his i'tikaf in the masjid. Mother Safiyyah bint Huyay ibn Akhtab came and talked to him while he was in the masjid, in i'tikaf. She's his wife. What's a problem? The only thing that is haram is to have any intimacy. Talking is no problem. And after she finished her subject, he walked her back to her home. He went out of the masjid to walk her back to her home. There is no problem in that at all, to have a phone call or a video call with your husband. Likewise, there is no problem in watching scholars on your mobile or your laptop as videos, because women are allowed to look at men as long as there is no fitna, as long as they're not tempted. But men are not allowed to look at women whether they're tempted or not. They're ordered to lower their gaze. But women, that is why women wear hijab and men don't. Because women walk in the street and they can see men without hijab and no problem, as long as the vast majority would not be tempted or have any fitna. While the opposite is true. Men are always tempted. It's something in their genes. It's something built in them that they're drawn like a magnet to the opposite gender. Samara or Samra says, my question is, if a person dies in the holy month of Ramadan, will he not be questioned in the grave till Judgment Day? Is this true? No, the answer is no. This is baseless. Those who die in Ramadan and those who die in other months than Ramadan are the same. However, in Ramadan, it is most likely that there will be an edge or an advantage due to those who pray funeral prayers upon them would be much, much larger in number. The gates of heaven are open, the gates of hell are closed. So, inshallah, they are in the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. We have a short break. Stay tuned, and inshallah, we'll be right back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah, and welcome back. Shamil or Shamil says, is it essential to cut the hair after performing Umrah while being in Mecca? Or is it okay if I leave to Jeddah and cut my hair there? Cutting the hair signifies that your Umrah is over. So once you cut your hair or shave it, you can take off your ihram clothes and return to civilian life, in the sense that you can wear perfume, you can wear a shirt, pants, shoes, cover your hair, clip your nails, the whole 9 yards. If you finish your Umrah and you did not cut your hair, you're still obliged to wear your ihram. So whether you do this in Mecca itself, or you drive all the way to Jeddah, and after an hour, 2, 5, 10 hours, up to you, well, as long as you are in the state of ihram, you have no problem. So you can cut your hair in Mecca, in Jeddah, in Riyadh, providing you do not take off your ihram till you do that. Brother says, I did something, between brackets, masturbation and swallowing mucus. And that was in the previous Ramadans. This made my fast invalid, but I did not know it would make it invalid. I only knew it I only knew it just now. Do I have to make up those days? But I don't know how many these days are. What am I supposed to do? First of all, the things that nullify your fasting are food and drinks, anything that takes their role, such as glucose and IV syrups, intercourse, masturbation, vomiting intentionally, menses or postnatal bleeding, and some say cupping. I think this is all it. Maybe, I don't know. Of course, there is the intention of nullifying your fast just out of the blue, also is included, and there are others, but they're an issue of dispute. So masturbation and the others nullify your fasting. Scholars say that in order for these things to nullify your fasting, they have to be done, first of all, out of knowledge. So someone who knowingly knows that eating and drinking during the daytime of Ramadan nullifies his fasting is nullified. But if someone did not know that masturbation nullifies fasting, he didn't know. There is a difference between not knowing the ruling and not knowing the punishment. No, this person is totally ignorant. He knows that eating, drinking, intercourse nullifies your fasting, but masturbation, he never thought it does. So knowing, it has to be done intentionally. So if someone forces you at gunpoint to eat and you eat, this doesn't affect your fasting. If you eat forgetfully, you forgot and you ate out of forgetfulness, then this does not affect your fasting as well. It has to be done intentionally. And whatever a person does out of ignorance, this has no impact. Therefore, masturbating, for those who did not know that it was one of the things that nullify your fast is valid and you don't have to make up these days. Now, swallowing your mucus, this doesn't affect your fasting, but it is not medically safe for you to do. Hina, she says, how many hours did the Prophet ﷺ sleep in general? I don't know. But if you look roughly, you would assume that he used to sleep between 3 to maximum 5 hours in total. The Prophet rarely slept except at night, and only for a couple of hours, maybe a little bit less, a little bit more, but that was it. So we don't have clear record of the hours that he used to sleep, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And people differ from one person to the other. Moderation and balance is important. Zainab says, I have 2 daughters, 3.5 years and 1 year old. The eldest is always given importance in the house by my mother-in-law. When she hits the younger one, my mother-in-law never wants me to shout at the elder one. I do as she says. I explain to her nicely all the time, but my eldest daughter never stops. Sometimes I feel once in a while I should shout at her and let her know that it is not acceptable, but I'm not allowed. First of all, I know this may sound shocking, but she is your daughter and you are not the daughter of your mother-in-law. you're not obliged to obey your mother-in-law. Yes, she's an elder woman, you respect her, you're dutiful to her. It's not my obligation to take orders from you. You're my mother-in-law, I love you, I respect you because of my husband. But you have no jurisdiction neither on me nor my children. I am entrusted to bring up my children. You may argue and say, I brought up your husband. Well, maybe you did not do a good job. Maybe you did, but this is not my concern. This is not my business. My children are my business. You are not allowed to tell me what to do and what not to do. You give me an advice, may Allah reward you. Jazakillahu khairan. If I take it or not, this is up to me. So, Zainab, you have the green light to ignore your mother-in-law's remark, and you have to take care of bringing your eldest daughter, reprimanding her, advising her, shouting at her, so that she acknowledges when she did wrong. By not shouting at her, shouting meaning telling a child, this is 3.5 years old. Shouting is not like holding a horn speaker and blow her ears off. Shouting meaning, what did you do? Don't do that. This is totally permissible and there's no problem in that. Zubair, he says, is studying accountancy permissible in Islam, since we are taught how to calculate interest and we have to end up taking up jobs in which we have to manage riba-based transactions? Studying is no problem. When it comes to calculating riba, percentage, fixed deposit, etc., studying is no problem. The problem is with implementing it, with working in companies, in financial institutions, in banks that deals with riba. This is totally prohibited. But the study of accountancy is okay. Teaching it is okay. Working in places where you don't deal with riba recording and transaction is okay. And Allah knows best. Aisha, according to the Quran, is earth spherical in shape or is it flat? In the Quran, Allah talks to the intellectual, to those who are illiterate, to those who live in cities, and to those who are Bedouins and nomads. It talks to what an individual sees. So there are verses that tell and describes the earth to be flat as far as you can see. Be realistic. Stand at the edge of a desert or an ocean. What do you see? I see things are flat. And this is how people describe things, according to what they see. Regardless of what astronomy says or NASA scientists say, when we look at the sun coming up in the morning, what do we see? We see that the sun is rising, and this is what we say, sunrise. And when it sets, we say the sun sets. Astrologists, or the people of astronomy, I beg your pardon, and scientists say the earth rotates around the sun and the sun does not rise and set. This is what we see. Therefore, this is what is said and mentioned to the layman. But also in the Quran, there are other evidences. In the Sunnah, there are other evidences that tell us that it all are spherical. All planets and stars are round. And this is what scholars such as Ibn Taymiyyah said, that it is the consensus of all scholars that all planets are round and spherical. Abu Ma'ruf from Saudi. Assalamu alaikum wa barakatuh. It appears that you're the only person viewing our alhamdulillah. Now at least I have two watching my program.
Yeah, thank you very much. I heard everything. Thank you very much. Jazakumullah khair.
Barakallah fi.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding the, it's a habit in the Indian subcontinent, especially in India, when you buy a property, the land or flat, apartment, house, whatever it may be, we have to pay two amounts. They say government registered amount, this land is so much per square yard, and then the other, they say market value. So we have to pay registered value as per government, then the market value is different in black money. They say out of the, unofficial. So is it permissible to pay as is just like a bribe or unofficial black money against the government?
Any more questions?
No, nothing, sir.
I will answer you, inshallah.
Yes.
Okay, we have like 1 minute to go. So Abu Ma'ruf's question is clear. The price of the property is $1 million, assuming. And when you come to sign the contract, you pay $200,000. This is the government registered amount, and this is what they would register in the deed. And under the table between you and the seller, you give him the balance, which is $800,000. Why? Usually they do this to evade taxations and to avoid any means of losing extra money on the whole total amount. This is considered to be cheating and breaking the law. But is it haram? It is haram because you're breaking the law of the government. It's a crime. And if you were caught red-handed, they will put you in jail. But as long as the price is fixed, which is a $1 million between you and the seller, and you give this, the transaction is correct, but you are sinful for breaking the law. Kokab says, should a married woman take permission from her husband to fast Mondays and Thursdays, voluntaries? The answer is yes. The Prophet ordered ﷺ women not to fast voluntary fasting without the permission of their husbands. And finally, Sumayya says, if I have wronged someone, I sought his forgiveness, he does not want to forgive me. What will be my fate on the day of judgment? You have to keep on asking them for forgiveness. If they don't, you repent to Allah, you do good deeds, you show your remorse, and you try your level best to ask Allah for forgiveness as much as you can. And if Allah accepts it, Allah will make that person satisfied on the day of judgment, and you will not be held accountable, insha'Allah.
إنني هداني ربي إلى صراط مستقيم دينا قيما ملة إبراهيم حنيفا وما كان من المشركين